Howdy everyone, my name is Kultar, aka Daydream Fever, and I'm going to be showing you guys some basics of electronic music production on my extremely fancy laptop that I've got here that is still running Windows 7. So every now and then you might see like a pop-up on my computer saying that I need to update my computer or something like that, but I just wanted to show you that it's proof that you can make good music. Well, I hope it's good music on pretty basic things. So the program that I'm using today is called FL Studio. I'm running quite an old version of it. I think it's up to version 20 now, but the principles should be the same whether you're using FL Studio or Logic or Pro Tools or GarageBand. Yeah, like I make a lot of beats on my phone these days, like on GarageBand and FL Studio Mobile. So I hope the principles of what you see in this video kind of are universal. I've got my phone here as well, so if anybody wants to ask questions or anything, feel free to do so. If what I'm doing doesn't make sense, or if you want me to slow down, or if you've got a specific question about what I'm doing, please feel free to do so. I think there's about a 20-second delay on my phone, so bear with me if I don't answer your question straight away. So this workshop's going to be pretty different to the one that I did last week. So last week was more of a performance-based workshop about loops on my loop station, using my vocals and things like that. Today I'm going to be using pre-recorded sounds. So I jumped on Triple J Unearthed yesterday, and I noticed that they've got this really cool competition going at the moment called DIY Supergroup. And basically how it works is they've uploaded for the public to use all these different loops and stems from a variety of artists like Flume, Amy Shark, who else we got here? G-Flip, Jungle Giants, Middle Kids, Tame Impala, TK Meisder, local Adelaide girl, big ups. And basically like the aim of the competition is you ideally take at least three, like sounds from at least three of the artists and make your own track. So I'm going to start doing that today. I thought it'd be cool to use this pack of loops here because they're available to the public. So you can jump on Triple J Unearthed and do the same thing if you wanted, and muck around with the loops yourself after you've seen this video. So I hope you feel inspired after this, because the aim of the game is to have fun. So let's have some fun making some music. So the first thing that I'll do is I'm gonna, like, what I usually start a track with is the drums or the bass. So I was having a listen before, and I really liked this bass line that I'm assuming KP, I don't know if you can see that on the screen, KP, I don't know if you want to zoom in on that, KP loop 80 beats per minute. So I had to listen to that before, so I'll give it a quick play. So yeah, it's just a basic bass loop. So I'm going to drag that into FL Studio. So I just clicked and dragged it, and I'm just dropping it into track 1. So what you're seeing here on the screen, basically this loop is 80 beats per minute. So up here I've got the tempo of the track, and I've made it 80 beats per minute. So if we look at the length of the loop, here is 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, 4 bars, 5 bars, up to 8 bars. So it's a 4x4 loop that goes for 8 bars. So I should be able to just loop that over and over, and it should just keep playing. So we've got one artist so far. We've got Tame Impala, Kevin Parker in my super group. So now I'm going to add some drums. And I'm a massive fan of G-Flip, so I'm assuming that G-Flip has some pretty dope drums in here. So let's have a listen to, what's this Strawberry Shake? So as I'm looking at these, I'm kind of looking at what BPM they are, so that they're not, so we're going to do a bit of maths here, guys. So I'm looking at what is sort of close to 80 BPM, which is the same as the Tame Impala bass line. So let's have a listen to this Strawberry Shake one. That's kind of cool. Okay, so that's 76 BPM. So it's not quite 80 BPM, but I'll show you how I'm going to match that up to the bass line. It could sound terrible, but so as you can see, this loop here that we've got, I'll just zoom in on them a little bit more so you can see them a little bit better. This little loop that we've got here looks like it's about 8 bars as well, but it goes for longer than the bass line because the BPMs don't exactly match up. So there's a few things we can do, but what I'm going to do is, and I might get you to zoom in on this. So I double click the loop, and here we've got this thing called time stretching. So I go to time, right click time, and I'm going to change it. No, I'm not. I'm going to chop it up into maybe 2 bars to start with. So let's just listen to it on its own. Okay, so that's sort of our loop there. So I'm looking at the sound waves and I want to chop them before the loop restarts. So I'm going to get my little cutting tool, and we'll chop this loop, I reckon, about here. So I reckon about here is where we want to cut, and get rid of this. We'll give that a listen. Cool. So I'm just going to smooth out that little snip there so it doesn't glitch. Okay. So I'm going to resave this sample, and let's give it. All right. So that is, if you can see from here to here, so from 1 to 2, that's a 1 bar loop. So I'm going to stretch that to 1 bar. And then as it resamples, I don't want to change the pitch of the sample. I want to keep it the same initially. So we'll see what that sounds like as 1 bar. So probably, I don't know if you can notice, but it's a teeny tiny bit faster. So now I'm going to click and drag it and loop it a few times and see what it sounds like over that bass line. Okay, so I'm not super happy with it, but it sounds okay. So what I'm going to do now is, while I'm making this beat on the fly, I'm going to sort of start mixing the volume levels so things don't get too out of control for you guys at home. So if I go, I'm just going to double click this and arm it to the mixing desk. So this is my virtual mixing desk. I'm going to link the bass line to channel 2, and you can see the volume going up and down there. So we're just going to drop that down a little bit, Because what I don't want to happen is in this master channel over here, you can see the sound like getting close to the red. So basically in the digital world, we don't want the signal to go beyond the red. It's kind of like revving your car way too fast. Like it will overload the speakers that you're listening on and it will start to distort. So we kind of want to keep it below that red line, or some people will say below the 0. So I'm just going to drop that bass line down a little bit, and now I'm going to put the percussion into channel 3. So G flips percussion. So we've got the Tame Impala bass line and G flips percussion. I'll turn that down a little bit as well, and we'll have a listen to them together again. And we can see on channel 1, like it's not peaking at all. There's still plenty of room for other things to go into the composition that we're making. Okay, I'm going to see what other drums we've got here. This sounds cool. Usher Made Me Do It. Yeah, that's a very cool beat. So we're going to drag that into our session now. So now we've got 2 sounds from G flip. So this one it says it's 66 beats per minute. So it's looking like it's probably a little bit, it looks like it's about a 4-bar loop. So I'm going to try and time stretch it to match up to that bass line. So I just right click time, click 4 bars, and then we'll see what that sounds like. I might just mute this percussion, and we'll just see what it sounds like all together. Okay, that's got quite a nice groove to it. I think that's kind of sped up the G flip sample, and therefore also kind of increased the pitch of it as well. Let's see what it sounds like all together. It might be a disaster, but we just experiment and see how it goes. No, I think I like it without this one. So, let's just mute that and have a listen to it again. Yeah, I'm definitely liking the sound of that. So I'm gonna add these drums to the mixing desk now, and we'll put that in channel 4. Okay, so you can see now, like this is a good example of what I was talking about before. When you combine the drums and the bass, so by themselves, they're not, I'll just mute the bass for a second. So those drums are getting pretty close to peaking on the mixing desk, but they're not quite peaking. But then when I combine that with the bass line, so the 2 of them together, it is getting too loud. You can see it's just going over that red line a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop the drums down a little bit. A lot of this is kind of, there's a science to this, but there's a lot of it is around taste as well. Like I'm a massive hip hop fan, so I tend to like my compositions to be quite bass heavy and percussion and drum heavy. So I'm gonna have those things probably the loudest in the mix, but I'm just gonna still drop them down a little bit. But I kind of want those kicks and snares and those drums to be bubbling over the Kevin Parker bass line. So let's give that a listen again and see if it's peaking. We're all good, all good. Okay, so just to give that, I've just had an idea, just to give that bass line a little bit of, I guess, like harmonic flavor. I'm going to copy it down here into another channel, save it as a new sample. So we've got the same bass line here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch it up an entire octave. So it might sound pretty weird at first, but we'll just see if this idea works. So I want to make sure that's on auto. So no, I want to, yeah, or let's. So now I'm going to put this into another channel on the mixing desk. So it's still the exact same bass line, but I've pitched it up an entire octave. And I'm gonna, so, sorry if I'm moving too quickly. So in each of these channels on the mixing desk is assigned a different sound. So I don't know if we want to zoom in at all on this channel here. So I'm on channel 5, which is this pitched up bass line. So first thing I'm going to do is turn that way down. So that should be a lot quieter now. Now I'm going to add an effect to this sound. So I come over to this over here is my effects, my digital effects rack, and I'm just going to add a channel EQ to this pitched up bass line. And I'm gonna, so like down here, that's kind of all your bass range. Up here is like your really high range, I guess. So kind of think of this like the triangle that you might have played at school, and think of this as like big heavy drums, or a bass guitar, or a sub bass in a dance track, or something like that. So I'm gonna sap all the bass out of this pitched up bass line. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bit of a, it doesn't sound that good right now, but I'm thinking of what it's going to sound like when I combine it with everything else. So then I'm going to add a thing called a stereo enhancer, and that's kind of going to, I guess, spread this pitched up bass line. So if you're listening on headphones, it's going to kind of like tickle your left and right ear at once. So if you think of the drums and the bass right now, they're right in the middle of the mix. So if you're listening at the moment through headphones, you'd hear them through your left and right ear equally. Whereas this pitched up bass line, I'm kind of going to spread it across the stereo spectrum, so it kind of tickles your ears in a little bit of a different way. So there's a preset on this stereo enhancer called for strings that'll just kind of really spread this effect across there. So let's have a listen to that. And then let's add the other bass line. And then we'll add the drums in. And then with this pitched up bass line, we can go even crazier. Like we can add other, cool effects and things like that as well. So might add a bit of a phase to it. I don't know what this. Okay, so we've got, at the moment, we've got a loop from Tame Impala, and we've got a loop from G-Flip. But this challenge wants you to add more sounds from different artists. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of like fancy these drums up a little bit more. So I'm gonna try and find another drum loop. So I was sussing this folder before. Let's have a listen to this crunched up beat loop at 86 BPM. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. I don't know how they've done that really crunchy sound. I'm guessing they've probably run the drums through some kind of like bit crusher or something, maybe distortion, or I'm not sure. Okay, so let's add this to the mixing desk now. So we've got a little drum loop from, what was the band called? Middle Kids. That's pretty cool. Okay, so this is 86 BPM. So if we go from here to here, it's not quite 2 bars because it's obviously too fast. So let's try and time stretch it to 2 bars and see how that sounds. It's probably going to be very loud at first, so let's have a listen. Now, that sounds absolutely horrible. If you're sorry to anyone listening at home, but I think that's more of a volume issue. So I'm just going to drop these drums down a lot on the mixing desk. So I'm just clicking the slider. You know, it can be really loud or turned really down, and just see what it sounds like in the background there. Yeah, I don't mind that in the mix in the background, so we'll loop that up. Okay, so now we've got bass line from Tame Impala, we've got drums from G-Flip, we've got drums from the Middle Kids. But at the moment, I've just been using other bands' loops, and I guess that's part of the challenge. So my super group thus far has Tame Impala, G-Flip, and Middle Kids in it, but I should probably add some of my own ideas to this as well. And I guess this is where my own musical composition will kind of come in. So I'm just going to have a little flirt around with some different sounds and see how we go. Okay, so again, if anyone has any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. So I wonder what kind of sound we could use over the top of this. So I open up a new channel. Here I've got a bunch of different, these are called VSTIs, like they're digital instruments. So we might just start with some, like just something basic like some keys. And I'm going to play the piano on my computer keyboard. So we've got a little grand piano there. Add that to the mixing desk and we'll just have a listen to this beat. Okay, so one of my favorite things about FL Studio is the power of its, I guess it's called the piano roll. So where you compose, where you do your composing. You know, like Pro Tools, Logic, all those programs are amazing, particularly if you're recording audio and recording vocals and things like that. And I think there's probably some advantages to different programs, but I've always liked the composition mode of the piano roll in FL Studio. It gives you a lot of options, and you can work your ideas very quickly. Okay, so So I'm kind of just noodling on the keyboard here. I don't have an actual MIDI keyboard in front of me. I'm just using the computer keyboard. And it kind of seems like this bass line is sitting around the D key. Just full disclosure, I am not a professionally trained musician. I've always worked with things in terms of electronic music production. So I am self-taught, and I'm sure if we had someone who was an actual pianist here right now, they would be doing this a lot quicker than I am right now. But I've always just kind of worked by ear and worked with loops. So. Now, for the sake of speed of working, I'm just going to open up this new loop down here and going to shorten this loop just to 2 bars. So I've just highlighted this section here, so you can just kind of loop it over and over again, just so we've got something to work with. Let's try it. So that's just like a really basic melody over the top of the bass line. But it sounds pretty static and boring. So the first thing I'm going to do is muck around with the velocity or volume of the keys, which is down. So I might get you to zoom in down here. So at the moment, all the keys are playing at the same level, but obviously a real keyboardist wouldn't do that. There'd be a bit more of a human touch to it. So I'm just going to drop the volume of some of the notes. And then, so all these notes, they're kind of really hitting really precisely and quantized. So I'm just going to throw them off a teeny tiny bit. So like if you look right at the beginning, this first note that starts at D, that's landing on the 1, and then over here we've got the 2, and then F sharp is landing on the 3. So I'm just going to bring F sharp just a teeny tiny bit forward, so it's not so perfect. And same with this G over here, and we'll have a listen to that. I'm just going to try and get these keys to blend in a little bit more in the mix. Maybe add a little bit of reverb to it. I don't really like those keys being so high up, so I'm going to drop them an octave. So I just copy them all, and then we're just going to drop them down 1 octave. Okay, so yeah, I probably will change that sound down the track, I think, if I keep working on this. But so now my DIY supergroup has Tame Impala, G Flip, Middle Kids, and a little bit of a melody from myself as well. So we've got 4 people, 4 groups in my supergroup. But all we've kind of got is a loop at the moment. So we certainly don't have a song. So we might leave it there, I think, because we've hit the half-hour mark. And maybe in the future we can talk about how to kind of structure something into a full song. You know, like at the moment, all we've kind of got is just a bunch of loops, but you know, it's not telling the full story. So you know, a song really should be like a good story. It should have an introduction, a middle, an end kind of thing, or most pop music kind of starts with an introduction, a verse, a hook or a chorus, a bridge maybe, and then goes back into a verse and then a chorus, and it finishes with an outro. So there's a very logical structure to a lot of pop music, but a lot of pop music also starts with loops just like this. So thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so much. Peace.